Number as you write your name, everybody else, because it's easier for me to get a count, obviously. The penmanship is also nice. I'm not going to be forging checks. I don't care about a signature. I just want to know what your name is. Hi. Sorry. It is stupidly early. Okay. This is Great Works of Literature 1. A survey of great works of literature. We'll get back to that. I am going to take a guess that everybody here, bright and early on a cold morning, would pretty much rather be just about anywhere else. And I appreciate as well that having surveyed, I don't know a lot about any of you, but having surveyed my class roster, very few of you, I will say this almost facetiously, very few of you are English majors or literature majors or liberal arts majors of any kind. That is fine. I fully recognize that you guys are not here because I am so good looking at this hour. I fully recognize that you guys are not here because you really love great works of literature, especially really, really old stuff. This is a required class for you to graduate, and I can see the hunger in your eyes, like, okay, just gotta endure a couple of months of this, and then I'm clear. I can get my degree, I can go out and get a job, and I can never care about this stuff again. Don't be ashamed. You're allowed to think that. Throughout the next, what are we looking at here? Like 3-4 months? I don't know. It's, I can make a Dante joke, but you won't get it just yet. Throughout the next 4 or so months, we will be talking a lot about literature and all of that boring stuff that you barely kept awake with through high school at relatively normal hours. But in that time, I intend to prove conclusively in each and every one of you that this is the single most important class of your college career. I say this knowing that most of you are going into the financial industries of some sort. Again, I refer back to this class roster I saw. There's an awful lot of finance majors, there's an awful lot of business majors, an awful lot of people who want to go out there and do real stuff and make real money. And that's fine. And all the classes that teach you how to do that, all the accounting classes, all of the finance classes, they will help you make money. My contention, and you're free to disagree with this, my contention is that all of those classes will get you your first job. But the skills, and we'll talk about skills, the skills you pick up here are what will get you the next job. the promotion, the raise, the crack out of your tiny little cubicle and into the big office. I know that sounds like BS right now. And maybe I am just, let's face it, a little delirious at this hour. But I have 4 months to prove my point. And you guys are kind of a captive audience. Oh. So, in everything I say, everything, bear that in mind. There is a dollar value attached to everything I say here, no matter how arcane, which is a SAT word, how remote any of this stuff is from your real concern in life. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff that is literally thousands of years old, but could not be more relevant to you and your immediate concerns. That's my point. Free to disagree, but again, I get the next 4 months to make my case, and then all you have to do is dispute it to yourself for the rest of your life. I like my odds. I think I'm going to do okay with this. Anyway, this is me. My name is Douglas Parker. You will notice a couple letters missing up here. There is no DR. I am not a doctor. You don't have to call me doctor. If you do, you'll make my dear departed mother very proud somewhere. But I am not. It would be a fraud. I really don't care what you call me. Well, you know, within range. I am an adjunct here. I've been teaching this class and its sister class. This one goes up to like the year 1600 or something like that, and then there's another one that follows that 1600 to modern day. I do both of those. I've done them for like half a dozen years or so. But enough about me. More about me. This is my email address. Feel free to email me whenever you want. It's not like it's going to wake me up in the middle of the night or anything, but you know. Email is important to me. When I just wake up and don't feel like coming, I will announce this via email. I say this for a reason. Number one, it doesn't happen often, but it's not entirely out of the realm. I do have 3 kids. They go to public school. You know, it's disgusting what they come home encrusted with. So there's a good chance I will get sick at some point in the next few months. In which case, when I wake up, I might cancel class. Unlikely, but it's out there. I tell you this because I am aware that everybody signs up for class generally through, I think, Blackboard or something. I don't know how it works these days. But you do so with your school email. I don't know about you, but I have a lot of email addresses. I have one here. I've got, I think just on my phone alone that I can check, like 6 others. And they all, you know, cover different quadrants of my life, and I like to keep things organized and separate. But the point is, I don't check all of them all of the time. If you sign up for class with your school email address, and then maybe look back, because let's face it, you're going to get a lot of junk mail from the school. Maybe don't check back in on that until 2 or 3 months down the semester. You're probably going to miss that early morning email saying, not feeling good, sleep late. That's on you, not on me. If you do not check your email address for school that I already have a record of on a regular basis, regular meaning, once a day at least. If you do not check that on a regular basis, fine. Send me an email from an account you actually check. If this is, a Gmail account, a work account, I don't care. Just send me it, put in the subject line the name of this class, and say, please use this, please use this email address, and I will plug it into my my contacts, and I will make sure that everything that I need to send out to the class goes out to all your accounts that I have. This will become increasingly important as we get into writing assignments, which I will get to soon enough. Don't worry about that. But I just want to make sure that our lines of communication are reasonably reliable. And the I canceled class and you didn't know about it warning is usually enough to shake everybody up. Because nobody really wants to think about, term papers. That's down the pike. I don't really care, and I don't really want to know that much about it anyway. But you will regret not having squared away this email conundrum if you are standing here or sitting here at, this hour and you're all alone because you're the only one who didn't get the email. Okay. Speaking of email. Last night I posted on Blackboard the syllabus. And I believe I sent out a notification on email. Did anyone not get this? So you do not know or have never seen the syllabus? Okay, so everybody has. This is encouraging. You know what this means? It means I did it correctly, because I have a very love-hate relationship with Blackboard, and I'm not sure about it, and most of the things I do on it are wrong. But I seem to have done this, so I'm excited about that. The syllabus. We're going to spend a little time talking about this, because you guys are all sizing me up right now, and you want to know how much is this really going to hurt in the upcoming 4 months. Okay, this is what you got. If you have any questions, this is an excellent time to ask. But let's go through it really quick. This course presents a global. I didn't really write this. I think I've read it once or twice in 6 years. But this is a blurb that I cut and pasted from the school. The different cultures, historical periods, ancient world through European Renaissance, yada, 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 yada. We're going to read a bunch of stuff. A lot of it's going to be old. The book. This is important. The book I will be using is this, the Norton Anthology of World Literature, 4th edition. 4th. There's still a lot of 3rd editions out there, and this is okay, but I will be using the 4th. It comes in 3 volumes. When I say the book, it is actually a series. It is a series of 3 books. They're heavy, they're expensive. But volumes A, B, and C. If you're taking the later class, you would be getting, anyone? D, E, and F. Alphabet is important. I will be using this book. I would like everyone to bring it to class. You do not have to bring all 3 volumes to class, but we will be talking about stuff from the book. A literature class is based on the book. So it helps if I look around and don't see blank, empty desks, and I know that if I start looking down and reading words, everybody else can sort of look down and start reading words. Now, I am not going to prejudge how anybody gets these words. I mentioned the third edition, still very common out there, and if you're getting used, there are probably more used third editions on the market than fourth. It's just basic common sense. There's a lot of similarity between the two. I don't really mind if you use the third edition. The second edition is going back a ways and it starts to get really different, and it'll be complete chaos. But try to get the fourth edition. If you cannot get the fourth edition, or you just don't want to, get the third edition. If you want to read it electronically, because everybody takes their laptop everywhere, but the book is heavy and can't be used for anything else, this is fine. Except in a very critical moment, two very critical moments that I'll get to in a minute, but you can feel free to read this online. You may also, I will give this, as long as, the good people at Norton Publishing aren't listening, everything we read here in this class is available online in some form. Not necessarily the same translations, however. Everything we're reading has been translated, everything except I think one thing, honestly. We'll get to that. And there are translations available on the internet that have basically expired under their copyright. All of the translations in this book are still covered under US copyright law. So you cannot just post the entire thing on the internet. But if you want to read an older one, an older translation, they're all over the place. If you want to read what we are reading in a different language, if you are more confident and comfortable reading in a different language, fine. You can find those translations out there as well. Everything in this class, in terms of writing, in terms of covering in class discussion, will be, I'm sorry to say, in my middle school level English. The problem with online translations is that they tend to be older. The thing with translation is it's not just translating from language to language, it's translating from language to time. If you read a translation of, say, the Greek poet Homer, who has some wonderful translations produced in the 1800s, or even in the 17 or even 1600s, they're wonderful, but you're really not, but they're being translated for that audience. So if you are comfortable reading ancient Greek via a Victorian Englishman and understanding all of the predilections of that mindset and audience, then, go for it. But you're translating it in your own head into modern English as you're reading the Victorian. So that's higher level math. I don't know if you really want to do that. I would say it is worth the investment to go with the modern translations. Now, that still doesn't necessarily mean that I insist on this book. these books are expensive. You can get them used and they are much cheaper. But then, they can be kind of beat up, and who really knows what kind of a sociopath is scribbling in the margins. You can also feel free. I will not be looking for receipts. If you want to take any of this stuff out of the public library, that's fine. I don't care. The library here has a lot of these books as well. This is all fine. However you read this stuff is entirely up to you. I'll be directing my discussions around this book. And if I say, okay, for the next class, we're going to have all the authors and the works up there on the schedule, I might say, well, we don't need to read the entire thing. I really want you to focus on this section. And I will cite either page numbers, or maybe if it's a poem or something, I'll talk about line numbers and say, take a look at this. And if you're working off a different book or a different version of it, it might be hard to find that. And that, again, is on you. You are free to read this however you want, but you have to take responsibility for saying, all right, he said to focus on one particular section. I'm not sure what that section is. I have to be proactive in finding out what it is. Again, I highly encourage people to ask me questions from time to time, or all the time. But you cannot come to me afterward and say, well, I didn't know what to read, so I didn't do it. That ain't gonna fly. That's not cool. The problem, I'm dwelling on this because it's important and it always comes up. The problem with the reading it online, reading it from a library book, reading it even from used paperbacks you can pick up at one of my favorite places on the planet, Strand Bookstore. The problem with that is on exam day, we have a midterm, we have a final, we'll go over those in a minute. On exam day, it will be all essay. You'll be expected to come in, write an essay, and leave. That's it. It will be open book. Open book essay is your professor's way of telling you we want to see quotation marks in that thing. And if we don't see them, that's bad for you. So you're going to need a physical copy of the book. No electronics are allowed on exam days. If you want to bring in your laptop, fine. It stays under your desk while you're taking the exam. You want to look at something on your phone? No, I will throw it out the window. Apple Watch? Sorry. You never know who could be texting you one line of an essay at a time and you're just sitting there reading it off your Apple Watch. So no electronics on the exam day. So you are free to read everything online. You can get electronic versions of this book and you can read it online. And that is a very convenient way of doing it. But on exam day, you're going to want to find a copy of the book. You can go with individual library books at that point. But, as we will get to in a moment, the reading list is substantive. And do you really want to be juggling 20 library books on final exam day? That's an awful lot to be falling off your desk. So, I recommend buying the book. I don't care if you don't. It's entirely up to you. You know how to balance your priorities. I'm just telling you what I will expect on each individual class day, and you'll be able to follow along with the text, and on the exam days. So now that I've burned that into your brains, hopefully, there's no question about that. Having said that, are there any questions about that?
So for the exam, it's just the book, and you bring in like your separate notes as well?
No. No notes. I don't check, and here's the thing where if you buy the book, it's fine with me if you scribble in the margins. We'll go over this much more as the exams come up. I personally, and I didn't used to do this is sort of a new thing for me, I have taken to scribbling in a lot of my margins. You can see my really awful penmanship throughout here. Well, actually, that's not so much there, but I scribble in margins, I underline, I make little notes for myself, and it helps me find stuff and remind me as I'm reading, oh yeah, that's what I thought about that 2 years ago. That is fine, but what I ask not to happen is, and this is sort of a judgment call on my part, is if I see you flip to the back where there are a couple of blank pages and I just find that you have written out an entire essay, that's kind of cheating. And that I'll call you on. Speaking of which, academic honesty. This I largely copied, again, from other templates, other stuff. So a lot of it is fairly common sense. Honestly, we all know what cheating is. If you stumble across something that you think, oh, this is going to be good, I just can't let anyone know I'm doing it, so I'm going to do it. But I can't let anyone know. I'm going to be quiet about it. When you feel that tug at your own moral code, you know what you're doing. Don't do it. I copied all of these, I believe, except the first one I wrote myself after some experience. Submitting any written work that is not your own without proper citation. I take the writing, this is primarily about term papers, also applicable to exams, but term papers in general, and we'll go over those with some exhaustive detail. I take the writing of the term papers pretty seriously. You will come to loathe me for the detail we apply. All very supportive. It will make you better people in the end. And believe me, it's not so bad as I'm making it sound now. But I take it seriously. Don't screw with me. I've had a couple experiences where, you know, I'm reading through someone's paper and maybe they are not the strongest English speaker in the world. Maybe their writing is a little rough, but I'm working with them. Okay, you know, a little E for effort in there. Syntax is a little iffy, vocabulary is a little limited, punctuation is but I'm invested. I'm saying, all right, you know, what's this guy doing? What's he doing? Okay, I get that. I get it. What do you mean? I'm there. I'm involved. Then suddenly, like 3 paragraphs in, this herky-jerky, jumbled mess of language suddenly transforms into brilliantly clean English. Everything grammatically correct. The ideas are sophisticated. And the language is elevated. You think I'm not going to notice that little shift in voice? When he goes from speaking with a very heavy Russian accent and all of the traits of that language tradition. And then suddenly he's speaking like an English professor from somewhere just outside London. And it's a funny thing. I know you guys are way cooler than I am, but I know how to work the Google too. And if I just highlight any phrase, not even a whole paragraph or even a whole sentence, any phrase that sounds suspicious, I just have to highlight that, post it into Google, and son of a gun, there it is. And that's a failing grade. Don't do that. I don't like failing people. It's no fun for me. I don't do curve stuff. We'll get to that in a minute. I don't curve because of my basic feelings about math. It's a very straightforward grading system. I don't care if everybody gets an A. I actually feel kind of good when that happens. But it is possible to fail the class. And it's almost always a direct result of some combination of cheating or just not doing the work. If you do something, you're in good shape. And I am here to help push you along for everything else. Where's that thing? Okay, here we go. So that's academic honesty. We all know this. Don't cheat. Requirements! This is what everybody has really been just waiting for me to get to, because you want to know what's really expected. Regular attendance, more than 2 absences may result in a lower grade. I'm flexible. If you are having a particular problem, just let me know. Shoot me a note. Say, family crisis, personal issues, keep me in the loop. If you just disappear one day, I'm just gonna take it as, well, not really that into it. That's fine. I won't think any worse of you, but I'm not gonna think any better of you. And that will show up in the final grade. Discussion participation. Here's a little thing that is very subjective, but it's good college 101 advice. Talk from time to time. I know it's awkward. Maybe you don't feel like you know enough about the topic to really chime in on it. Oh, all those people are so smart who are writing this stuff. What do I have to say? Everybody's input is valid here. Everything we're going to read here is aimed at broad audiences, not, PhD level stuff. Plus, if you talk from time to time, I already feel like we have a bond. If you talk from time to time, I get to link up the name on the roster with the face sitting out there. And you're no longer just someone sitting there scowling at me, resenting me because it is so early in the morning and I just keep talking. I start to humanize that name. I start to associate so that when you come to me, oh, professor, I just had a bear of a week and I know my draft for my term paper is due. Is there any way? I've been working so hard. It's such a rough time. Is there any way you can just give me an extra day on the deadline? If I don't know who you are, it's really easy to say no. If I know who you are, it's less easy because I'm a human being. Treat me like one. And at the end of the semester, when I am grading, now I'll go over in a moment my grading formula, my rubric, as they call it. I still don't really know what that word means, but it sounds cool and it's fun to say. When I am going through that, I try to be as objective as possible. I try to make it as mathematically simple and objective as possible. But there are always built into that opportunities for me to say, well, I know this person was trying. And maybe that one assignment went a little sideways, but her heart was in it. I know it. And I get that from you talking. Personality brings that out. If you come to me at the end of the semester and say, "What? I got a B+, couldn't you just edge it up just a little bit into the A- range?" If I don't know who the hell you are, it's really easy to say no. So that's just a little college advice, not just for this class, but for every class. Let your professor know who you are, even if you're just raising your hand to talk and saying the most obvious thing in the world. I noticed that everything we're reading is composed of letters. What do you think of that? Fine. Kick it out. I'll bet I can whip that into something really, really BS-y that will, allow somebody to go on and write a great paper about it and become world famous within academia, which means you're still a nobody. Oral presentations. I'll get more onto this in a minute. I don't want anyone to freak out about that. These are as involved as you generally want them to be. And again, I try and build stuff into the rubric that allow you to, I'm not going to say boost your grade, but give you an opportunity to work on a couple of different things to give you kind of a floor so that you can't drop below it. So if you come in, if you're really bad at writing in class, I always was, I hate timed finals and stuff like that. If you're really bad at that and you figure, all right, I'm not gonna do very well on that, what else can I do to really, boost the grade up so I can take a hit on that one category? I try and do that. Midterms and final exams, I sort of talked about that. I will talk more about it as we go along. Term paper, 750 word. Term paper, that's a typo. It should be 7,500. I'm kidding. I am not expecting, I don't want to read a 7,000 page paper. What are you even accusing me of doing that for? 750 words. See, you're just not even prepared for my level of sarcasm here. It's early. Yeah, deal with it. 750 words. That is not a gift. Seems like it. Because you're thinking, all right, 750 words, that's like a page and a half, something like that. 750 words is a challenge. 750 words means when you open up your laptop and you stare at that blinking cursor, I don't want the instinct to be, how many veries can I get into this sentence? How many adjectives can I shoehorn in there? If I make it a long title, does that count? All of those little calculations that you tend to make in high school, I don't want anywhere near this. I don't care. Chances are, and here I'm going to go real world on you, when you get those jobs that I spoke about, when you get those jobs where you will be making more money than I am right now, do a guy a solid and toss me a nickel for the coffee every now and then. When you get those jobs, your boss will very rarely come to you and say, I would like a 5 to 7 page explanation of this project. He doesn't have time for that. If he does, he's on his way out soon and you're gonna get primed for his new job. But he doesn't have time for that. He needs concision, he needs focus, and he does not want to read. And I'm saying he, but okay, she as well. Let's not go there. He does not want to read, or she does not want to read very, very, very something. Focus, concision, deliberate language. That's what we will work on. And when I say work on it, I'm serious. When we get to term papers, and again, we will go over this in great detail of exactly what I'm looking for. When we get to term papers, I will tell you, everybody has to read a rough draft, or everybody has to submit a rough draft of their paper. It is not graded. Now, I can see the relief on everybody's relaxing face saying, oh, I'm not doing it then. If you don't submit a rough draft, I will not read your final draft. So it is kind of graded. But the rough draft is only the beginning. And I want you to think of it that way. As we go through the writing process, I want you to recognize one thing above all else, and that is that everything you write, when it first comes out of your fingers, and it feels so good, yeah, it's crap. It's junk, it's garbage, it means nothing, but it's a start. It is the lump of clay that you can then start to form. Nothing is worse than a blank piece of paper. But once you have actual words up there, you can start to shape them. You can start to carve out something of value. That's where the fun begins. That's where the work begins. I will go over with you all of your papers, every draft. You can submit as many drafts as you want, and I will read every one of them and offer some feedback. On none of them will I offer comprehensive feedback. You are free to submit one rough draft, and I will give you my 2 cents for that one. It might be very detailed, it might be very broad, it'll just be what's cropping up in my head right then that I think you need to work at this moment. I guarantee I will see issues for down the line. But I'm not going to start correcting your punctuation when I'm telling you to overhaul, the foundation of it, the basic structure, because all the punctuation is going to get tossed out and changed anyway. I am here to help you go through it, word by word, so that those 750 words are clean, are crisp, are presentable. I will, in this process, explain to you exactly how I will be grading these papers when I take off my editor hat and put on my grader hat. I will tell you what I'm looking for. And if a professor tells you what they're looking for, it's to your best interest to give that to that person. Even if what he's looking for is crap. Because what I think I want, I think is better. So give it to me, even if it is crap. But in that process, you start to learn that, yeah, everything I write is crap at first. I don't know what the hell I was saying. I was sort of fiddling around and finding my idea. I wrote 3 whole paragraphs before I said anything of value. And those 3 whole paragraphs, yeah, that takes up a full page, and I feel good about that. I don't want to lose it, but you know what? It's crap. Get rid of it. At the end of those 3 paragraphs, I found what I was talking about, and then I started to make sense. So that's my new beginning. That process of always refining, of going back, objectifying your work, is the real value in this class, I gotta tell you. If you learn nothing else, that is valuable. Because again, let's go back to this fictional boss. You're gonna have a boss one day. I don't mean to look at you and say fictional. You'll have a boss one day. Unless we're gonna be one of those startup entrepreneurs and make $1 billion and never have a boss, in which case you're worthless. I didn't mean that. I'm sure you're a fine person. If you give your concise, deliberate report to your boss, be it on a 2-page brief, or perhaps a PowerPoint presentation. And it is riddled with logical inconsistencies, grammatical errors, sloppy presentation of all kinds. It's not going to think very well of you. You're going to be, oh yeah, that. Good in the cubicle, not good anywhere else. When the big presentation opportunity comes up, when you have a sales trip overseas and somebody from your team needs to go lead that presentation to close the deal, millions, if not billions of dollars on the line, and they need somebody to go into a conference room and present the ideas, say, this is the work we are capable of. That is a leader. That is the sort of challenge that mid-level employees get from time to time as a test to see if they can rise up to the corner office. But how much faith is that fictional faraway country going to have in you and your organization's ability if the work you put up is crap? If it makes no sense, if it's just sloppy. These things matter. These things add up. People will judge on superficial stuff. And if on the first page of your PowerPoint presentation somebody sees an apostrophe out of place, you might fixate on that and tune out from everything else you say after that. And you just lost the sale before you open your mouth. That's unfortunate. Anyway, short writing assignments, don't worry about that. Those will be very simple as well. I will tell you, short writing assignments are really just a warm-up for the term papers, and it's an opportunity for you to get a sense of what I'm going to be looking for when we get to the papers. It's also an opportunity to prove to me that you have done the reading. It's very important that you do the reading. Some of it is substantive, and we're about to get to that, and will require some time put in. But I'm really not being that mean on this. Oral presentations, well, we'll go over this a little bit here. Each student is expected to make a 5-minute oral presentation of the reading for a given week. Do not just summarize, assume your audience knows the test. Your job is to frame it for them. Give an interpretation of what the text is trying to accomplish. Suggest connections with other texts you've read. How does a given text speak to you, and what does it say? Focus very carefully, on what the work of literature does. What is your reaction as you read? Don't just consider what the story is about, but try to isolate how the literature communicates this meaning. What sections, what characteristics, what specific words compel you to have the reactions you do. Chart and record your feelings as you read, and then try to add up all of these judgments into a general statement of what is this really about? Oral presentations, as I said, are sort of built in there so that people can, get a little grade boost there. It can be as involved as you want. I have had people do full-blown PowerPoint things with fancy slides and pictures, and some people even bring in animation and video and all sorts of stuff. The time is yours. Go crazy with it. The advantage of that for a lot of people is the more structured it is, the more of a mental script they have. If they are uncomfortable speaking in public, it's not a bad option. You have slides, you kind of have a script. I'm going to push back on anyone who just sits there and literally reads a script, but it's a way to organize your thoughts. And if you're going to just get up and try and do something off the top of your head, that can make people nervous and can lead to a lot of gibberish. I'm sure not with you guys, but with most people. So the formal approach is, for some people, a better option. Also, a good option, the informal approach. I'm pretty open to these things. I have had people just sit and talk off the top of their head. One of the very first classes I ever taught here on one of these, the first week, this girl volunteered, and newsflash, whenever you volunteer to go first in anything, you're automatically locking in a good grade because it takes guts to go first, and I appreciate that. The first girl got up and did something very thorough, very substantive. She wrote out all sorts of stuff. She didn't just read her script, but she essentially walked everyone through her thought process, getting very deeply involved in the text, and it was very clear she had thought out everything well in advance, and she did great. I believe she ended up with an A in the class, even though I believe she missed more than 2 classes. So, you know, I appreciate these things. The next week, the person who was supposed to go had dropped the class. Volunteered to give an oral presentation, then I don't really want to do it. So I was sitting here thinking, well, okay, nobody wants to go. Does anyone want to give it a shot? And this guy, it's always a guy who volunteers for the, you know, sure. Women prepare ahead of time, I've noticed this. This guy just said, I'll give it a shot. And he sat in his desk, and he just flipped open to the reading, and he started talking about it. It was all off the top of his head. Now, I believed that he had read it beforehand. He wasn't just, you know, telling me about his summer vacation. But it was clearly not something he was, you know, planning to do when he walked in the room. He got an A2 because he just confronted the material and he said, well, yeah, this is what I thought about it when I was reading, and I'm thinking about it now, and it's sort of the same but a little different, and let me explain that to you. No bells, no whistles, no fancy stuff. He sat there and he talked. That's fine. Other people, again, I'm trying to make this very open. Other people are less comfortable with that, so we go to a question and answer type thing, where you simply say, I will go. And then what that means is, I start talking, and I will be, increasingly throughout this semester, asking people direct questions, putting them on the spot a little bit. What do you think about this passage? I'll be doing that liberally. But if you want to do or get credit for an oral presentation for that, the heat gets turned up just a little bit. I'm not going to say I'm going to grill you, but I guess technically that's what the heat turned up metaphor means. I'm going to grill you just a little bit. It'll be a little bit more directed, a little bit more pointed. If I'm going to be engaging the whole class, I will do that, and you can expect that if you get asked one question, I might have a follow-up, but there's a good chance I won't ask another. But if you are looking for credit for an oral presentation, you're on the hot seat. I'll be drilling down a little bit. It helps to have some preparation under your belt there. We can work this out as we go along. When we get to the schedule in a little bit, I'm going to ask for volunteers and we will work that out. I apologize for the sound of my voice. It won't get any better. Final paper, I pretty much talked all about this. This has some deadline information, when stuff is due, primarily the rough draft and the final draft. The final draft is due, I believe, the last week or the week before the last regular, on or before May 14th, the last regular meeting of the class. I will read no paper, blah, 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 no No submitting without a rough draft. Here I'm saying all drafts should be emailed as an MS Word doc. MS Word is my favorite, so we're going to stick with that. I have mixed feelings about Blackboard. It's a love-hate thing, and I'll go back and forth on this. And how much I might do with that is sort of open to wild swings of temperament on my part. But generally, you'll be submitting, hopefully, multiple drafts. Word to the wise on this one. I have had people get their papers to me early, and we go through the multiple drafts ahead of pretty much everybody else. And they're really on top of it, and they push it. And at a certain point, I will say, well, you crossed the threshold for an A. If you want to keep polishing this, you can, but you're there now and your grade won't improve. You can feel free to stop. And I have had people do that as much as like 3 or 4 weeks before the end of the semester, which leaves them free to focus on other classes, other finals, other projects, other papers. You know, if you're staring down the barrel of a statistics final in that last week of class, maybe you want to get this out of the way, clear the decks. Other word to the wise, generally, and this varies significantly, generally I have found it takes approximately 6 drafts, 6 full rewritings of your paper before it hits that A grade. But I'll be working for you the entire time. I don't grade in those early things. I won't even remember how sloppy it began, how, you know, sketchy and half-assed that first draft might be. But I am working as your editor up until May 14th. Everything before that, you submit me multiple stuff, and I'm saying, okay, this is good, this is good, this could be better, why don't you try this, why don't you try that, change that, take this out. Learn the apostrophe. I'll rant about that more at another time, but I will be working for you that entire time. Whether or not you take advantage of that is entirely up to you. You can submit one rough draft and say, I don't really care, I'm just phoning this in, I want my credit, I want to leave. That's fine, I won't think any worse for you. But if you got me working for you, and multiple drafts prove that, you know, commitment on your part, make me think better of you as a student, makes sense to me. What do I know? Assessment. As I said, I am essentially an English teacher. I don't do math well. So everything is worth 20% because at the end of the semester, I got a lot of stuff going on. I got to keep it simple. 20% for participation, short assignments, and attendance. There's that, you know, show up even if you're asleep type thing. I'm kidding. If I see you with the head down, I'm gonna, again, there, but not really there. On time is also kind of a thing there. If you're wandering in now, after I've already been talking for this long, that's not gonna go well. Be reasonably punctual. Show up, try and participate. Toss out any comment, however off the mark you think it might be. Oral presentations, I talked a little bit about that. Midterm exam, final paper. Everything is worth the same amount, which means nothing will sink you. You can absolutely forget about one of these categories and still get a B-. You want to blow off the final? Fine. You're tossing out 20 points right there, but you can still pass. I try and make it so that everybody has a way to pass. If you are really bad at writing in class in a timed environment, take that into account. Really bolster the non-timed writing by sending me multiple drafts and try and boost that up a little bit. Give a little extra oomph to the oral presentation to cover, oh gee, I really kind of tanked the midterm. What can I do to bolster that? You know, it's not hard to do a little political calculation here as to what will get you through. All written work is to be handed in on time and typed in grammatically correct English, observing all proper and stated rules for composition. I will be going through and helping you with grammar and punctuation and all of that English papery stuff. And that I see, and I'm going to try not to be too judgmental about that. And, you know, who really knows effectively how to use the apostrophe beyond, you know, dopes like me? But there is a level of respect, I think, conveyed in somebody who tries to make everything they hand in reasonably professional. And that is the standard I'll be pushing for again and again and again. Not artistic. I don't care how poetic you can get in your writing. I want a professional presentation. And part of that is my understanding that you will be writing this, almost all of you, I won't say all, but I feel pretty confident that the vast majority will be writing this on some form of electronic software, all of which comes with those handy dandy, if not really annoying red lines underneath that tell you that something's not quite right with that word. And if I get that document and it's just littered with those, then you're not doing your basic level job as to write what you want, then go over and reread it. And if you see a red line, try and figure out what the hell's going on. You won't catch all of them. Some of them, honestly, the algorithms for a lot of those are very flawed, and I don't know what the hell is going on with it, and that's fine. But just a basic pass. Don't just scribble something out that is total gibberish and expect me to be able to read it. Because I got things to do. Again, I go back, 3 kids. I got stuff going on. If you have any problems with being able to produce this due to a lack of access to like if you lose your laptop, if it breaks, I have had that happen. I had a laptop once go kerflooey on me at this point in the semester, and it just totally screwed me up because everything I had was on there, and I was just making it up as I went along for the first month of class. I understand that. Again, keep me in the loop. Come to me and say, something happened here. I can produce this, but I got to do it on like a loaner. Borrowing something through the library, whatever, I don't care. Let me know what you're doing and what problems you're having, and I can try and finesse deadlines and give you a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Okay. I promise we're wrapping this up. Well, this part of it. There's always more. This is the schedule. We meet twice a week. For what, an hour and 40 minutes, something like that. I teach the same class once a week on Sunday afternoons for 3 hours and 45 minutes or something like that. That's long. I don't get to watch football at all during the football season. It kind of stinks. And You think I'm pacing a lot now. That's me going crazy because I have to suck back a gallon of coffee. But anyway, sorry about the pacing. I do tend to pace. It's not distracting, or at least not to me, but it's just what I do when I think. If it's distracting to you, or if it's going to send you into seizures or something, please let me know. We're meeting twice a week. I have tried to schedule a reasonable pace of reading. Spoiler alert, a literature class involves reading. It's the baseline. Do the reading, you will be fine. I reserve the right to submit little quizzes to make sure you have done the reading. I've tried to bear in mind certain things like, okay, I'm not gonna go crazy with having to read 300 pages between a Monday and a Wednesday. That seems unfair to me. I'm a nice guy. I try to be. But there is also a bit of a acceleration as we go along. The first couple of days, relatively simple. You'll get the books. Hopefully some of you have already started. When you signed up for the class, it should have been under books required. But the reading won't take you very long. As we go on, it will become a little bit more hefty. You can expect, by the end of the semester, you can expect, quite a few evenings spent pouring through this stuff. I don't expect, when you are reading, anybody to be expert in any of this stuff. If you have read any of this stuff before, in high school or wherever, on your own, I'd be really impressed. Terrific. But I'm not expecting anybody to come to it and say, well, of course I have, I spent a month in the south of France where we read the Chanson de Roland in the original and visited the pass at Roncesvalles. Pronunciation is fun. I don't expect expertise. I expect everybody to come to it with a kind of neutral, objective, what's this about? Flip open the page, plow in, what can you make of it? My contention, and this is kind of how I begin, is that all of this stuff is valuable to you now and for the rest of your professional lives. There's that word professional again. Wow, it's almost as if that's a theme. You will see on this, it takes a little while to get to the first short writing assignment. Again, I'm going to emphasize short on that. Don't worry about it. And I will be explaining exactly what you want, or exactly what I want. There are a couple of weeks where we're spending 2 classes on a single work. The Iliad in a couple of weeks, the Aeneid a couple of weeks after that, the Ramayana right after that, 1001 Nights, what else? I think that might be it. No, the Don Quixote down there. Those are longer works, although the Iliad is still just an excerpt, and so is the Aeneid, quite frankly. The other stuff tends to be a little shorter, especially up top here. I mean, we're really basically reading short excerpts. Genesis 1 through 4 and 11 is next time. That's not much. And that also, again, we're not going to be reading terribly close about the language and the translation. So if you have a little trouble finding the book, this buys you a little extra time because the Bible is available in multiple translations on the internet and in every hotel room. Tale of Sinewe, Gilgamesh, Iliad, Agamemnon, and Medea are plays. On that day, February 20th, for Medea, I'm asking that term paper topics be submitted. All I want to know is what you're thinking about. I will give you a list of suggested topics. You can choose from that, or you can come to me and offer your own topic. And I might say, okay. I do get a little bored reading the same essays every semester. So I encourage people to get a little creative. Not too creative. I've had people come to me and suggest papers on AI technology. I'm not sure what that has to do with anything. I'm not sure, really not sure what that has to do with works of literature from 3,000 years ago. Seems like a stretch to me. So I will probably punt that one back to you. But other than that, give it a shot. Come up with your idea. And all I'm asking for then is the topic. You do not have to submit anything written. Well, you have to probably email me with the topic. But that's a single sentence. And if you're taking it from one that I do, or that I suggest, you can literally cut and paste that in. And I will accept that. You do not have to do any writing. The only purpose of having this there is I want you to begin as early as, 4 weeks from now, 5 weeks, I don't know, a while from now. I want you to begin the time-honored process of procrastination. Because we all know it'll take a couple of weeks after you actually decide what you're going to write about before you actually sit down and start pecking out a single word about it. So let's start that process a little early. Midterm exam, final exam. That is the entire class for those days. You come in, you take a little blue book, you sit down, you write me an essay. When it's done, you can leave. I try not to make it too difficult of an essay that you can't write it in an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes. But I have had some people take the full class to do it. I've had some people jam it out in 20 minutes and leave. Those people are usually hated, but you know, not by me, but everybody else. You guys all watching someone, let's face it, you see somebody get up and leave from a test, everybody kind of hates that person. But that I won't judge. Oh, well, you know, that person either totally wrote nothing but cursing me out for 3 pages and then handed in the booklet, or that person just knows it so well that they just, off the top of their head, genius. I don't know. You don't know either. Don't prejudge. So those, fairly simple. No new reading for that week, you will notice. Each test will cover everything that came beforehand, which means the final will be comprehensive. The final, like the term paper, will ask you to cover at least one work of literature, or discuss at least one work of literature from each of the 3 major periods we're covering. Now you can call these periods whatever the hell you want, but they break down essentially to the volumes of this book, which is here Ancient, Medieval, and Renaissance, which are all European constructs, and they really mean nothing, and we'll be talking about that as we go on, but it's what we have. So if you are really rocking out the first couple of weeks of class, and then you decide, well, if I just write my paper now, I can kick back for the rest of the semester. I don't have to read anything else. Not so much. Keep up throughout. Yeah, I'm looking at this actually, the question that I hit on earlier. There is not a single thing in this that is not translated. Sometimes I do stuff from England from the 1600s, Shakespeare or Milton or one of those chuckleheads, and those guys come in their original language. But this is all translated within the last 20 years. Some of them quite well, some better than others, some of them quite extraordinarily. But the point is, the literature is written for this audience. So there are going to be foreign aspects of it in terms of time. Some of it will seem like, what? But language is at least updated so that, you know, they're not going to go, they're not translating the Iliad with emojis or anything, but they're making it conversant in a modern idiom. Any questions about the reading? All right, this is the kind of lively engagement I could hope for. All right, I'm going to do a little song and dance.